The elevator opens directly into the apartment. That's the first thing Amanda notices. Not the view, not the marble, not the kind of silence that costs money to maintain. The elevator opens, and there's no hallway, no transition, no polite buffer between the outside world and wherever you're about to be. You step off and you're just there, inside, immediately subject to whatever rules govern this place, whether anyone's told you what they are or not. She shifts the strap of her bag on her shoulder. 25 years old, 48 hours notice, and a text from a woman named Patricia that said, "Urgent placement, top-tier client, be there by 6 p.m. An address attached and exactly nothing else. It's 5:58. The apartment is enormous in the way that doesn't announce itself. No dramatic staircase, no chandelier that needs its own zip code. Just space. Clean, deliberate, expensive space. Floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides. The city spread out 40 stories below like something someone arranged just to look at. A kitchen that's never been cooked in. Amanda can tell by the way the light sits on the counters, undisturbed. A living room where every surface has been chosen by someone who understands design and nothing about comfort. The air is the thing that gets her. Not stale, not sterile, just utterly neutral, like the apartment itself is withholding judgment. No coffee smell, no candle, no trace of a meal or a habit or a human being who actually lives here. Every apartment she's ever worked in had a smell. Crayons and dish soap in the Harmon house, garlic and old books on West 84th. This place smells like nothing, and somehow that's the loudest thing in the room. A man appears from a corridor on the left. He doesn't walk in. He arrives, which is a different thing. Alex Mercer is 39 years old and built like someone who used to run and stopped not because of age, but because he ran out of things to run toward. Dark suit, no tie, top button open in the specific way of a man who had a full day and is now dealing with one more thing. His hair is dark with the first threads of silver at the temples, and his jaw carries the particular set of someone who has been clenching it since approximately 9 this morning and has stopped noticing. He looks at Amanda the way he probably looks at spreadsheets, assessing. Not unkind, just completely without warmth. "You're the placement," he says. "Not you must be Amanda. Not thank you for coming on short notice." The placement. Amanda Cole. She doesn't extend her hand and he hasn't opened that door. "Patricia sent me. I know who sent you." He crosses to the kitchen island, picks up a folder, holds it out. These are the protocols. Matthew's schedule, dietary restrictions, emergency contacts. He goes to bed at 8:30. He doesn't eat anything orange, not an allergy, a preference he's decided is non-negotiable. Don't try to reason with him about it, it doesn't work. A pause. He's 6. Amanda takes the folder, opens it. The protocols are printed in 10-point font, double-sided, 4 pages. She turns to page 2 without comment. "I'm in the office by 7. I'm available by phone for genuine emergencies only." Patricia knows what constitutes a genuine emergency. If you're unsure, ask her. He's already moving back toward the corridor. "Your room is down the hall, last door on the left. Helen will show you." "Where's Matthew?" He stops, turns just slightly. "Asleep. He had a difficult afternoon." The words are precise and final, a door being closed without being slammed. "Okay." Amanda closes the folder. "And the previous nanny? Was there a handover?" Notes. Anything Matthew might be expecting in terms of, there was no handover. Something tightens briefly in his face, a muscle along his jaw pulling taut for half a second before he releases it, like he caught himself doing something, then releases. "That's why you're here on a Tuesday at 6 in the evening. Any other questions?" "There are about 11. She asks 0. "I'll get settled," she says. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer." He nods once, the way people nod when they've already moved on, and disappears back down the corridor. Amanda stands in the middle of the living room for a moment. The city glitters 40 stories below. The kitchen light hums faintly, the only sound in the whole apartment, and it's the kind of sound you only notice when everything else has gone completely quiet. From somewhere down the hall hum the last door on the left, she'd guess. There's a sound so small she almost misses it. A child, not quite asleep, talking to himself in the dark. She picks up her bag. She doesn't go to her room first. The last door on the left is his room, not hers. She figures this out from the dinosaurs on the door handle. Matthew is 6 years old and has, apparently, opinions about door handles. Good. She can work with opinions. She knocks softly. Matthew. Silence. Then, I'm asleep. You're talking, though. A pause. I talk in my sleep. That's a skill. She leans against the door frame. I'm Amanda. I'm going to be here for a while. Another pause, longer this time. The kind where a small person is doing calculations. Ms. Diane left, he says finally. I know. She didn't say goodbye. The sentence lands clean and flat, the way only a child can land something. No self-pity in it, no play for sympathy, just the plain fact of the thing, offered up like a coin he's been turning over in his pocket all day and hasn't decided whether to spend or keep. Amanda has heard children perform sadness before. This isn't that. This is just a 6-year-old boy trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, and doing it out loud because there's no one around who thinks it's worth talking about. That wasn't okay, Amanda says. She should have said goodbye. More silence. Do you like dinosaurs? She asks. T-rexes specifically. Okay, we can work with that. She straightens. Get some sleep, Matthew. I'll be here in the morning. She's 3 steps down the hallway when she hears it. Small feet on carpet, a door opening just a crack. Amanda? She turns. He's standing in the doorway in dinosaur pajamas, one hand on the frame, his posture somewhere between brave and braced, the way kids stand when they've already been disappointed and are about to risk it again anyway. His father's jaw already forming on his 6-year-old face, brown eyes, Alex's eyes, but warmer, everything that man has locked behind plate glass, sitting right on the surface of this child. Are you going to leave too? He asks. And there it is. The question under the question. The thing she'll be answering in one way or another for however long she's here. Not without saying goodbye, she says. That's a promise. He considers this with the gravity of someone checking terms before signing a contract. His eyes don't leave her face. He's looking for something, the way kids look when they've learned that adults say things and then don't do them, when they've started collecting evidence before they decide whether to believe. Then he goes back to bed. Amanda stands in the hallway for a moment longer than necessary. Somewhere on the other side of the apartment, behind the closed door of his study, Alex Mercer is on his 3rd conference call of the evening, building something vast and efficient and completely impenetrable. She picks up the protocols folder from where she left it on the hall table, turns to page 3. She already knows the rules. She's much more interested in everything they don't cover. By the end of the first week, Amanda has a working theory about Alex Mercer. He doesn't avoid people. He processes them, which is a different thing entirely. Avoidance requires some awareness of what you're moving away from, some acknowledgement that the thing exists. What Alex does is more clinical than that. He takes in information, determines its relevance to whatever he's currently optimizing for, and routes it accordingly. Useful people get attention. Variables get protocols. And whatever she is, she's still working on where that lands. She knows this not from conversation, because they haven't had one. She knows it from everything else, the way he moves through the apartment. Purposeful, direct, no lingering anywhere. The coffee gone by the time she comes down at 7:15. The mug washed and placed in the drying rack with the quiet precision of a man who doesn't like leaving evidence of himself in a room. Every surface in his study exactly where it was the day before, which means either he has a photographic memory or he's deeply uncomfortable with entropy. Probably both. Matthew, on the other hand, is chaos in dinosaur pajamas, and Amanda has decided she loves him a little bit for it. He doesn't sleep through the night. She discovers this on day 2, waking to the sound of him at 2 in the morning, not crying, just awake and moving around his room, narrating a running commentary to his dinosaur figures about what they're doing and why and who would win in a fight, and under what specific geological conditions. She goes in the first time, sits on the floor, listens to an extremely detailed account of why T-rex would defeat a Spinosaurus in a territorial dispute that apparently involves the top bunk. "Who told you Spinosaurus was bigger?" she asks. "Daddy." Matthew says this with the matter-of-fact pride of someone whose father has given them a genuinely useful piece of information, even if he can't locate his father in the house most of the time. He's right. She leans back against the bed frame. Spinosaurus was probably bigger, but T-rex had a stronger bite. This becomes a 40-minute conversation. Matthew falls asleep mid-sentence, which is the only kind of falling asleep that ever sticks with children who are terrified of missing something. There's a specific kind of kid who doesn't sleep. Amanda has known a few. They're not anxious, not exactly. They're just too tuned in, picking up frequencies that adults have learned to filter out. They lie there cataloguing the sounds of the house, which floorboard creaks, how the radiator sounds different at 3 a.m. than at midnight, whether the person down the hall is still awake. Matthew is one of those kids. The dark doesn't scare him. The quiet does. Amanda sits on his floor for a minute after his breathing evens out, the apartment around her still except for the low, constant murmur of the city 40 stories below, that particular hum of a place that never fully powers down. 7 rules. The protocols have 7 core rules. By the end of the week she's broken 3 of them, all in direct service of Matthew actually eating dinner and not lying awake, replaying the morning his last nanny simply didn't come back. Rule 4. Maintain professional boundaries with household staff, and do not discuss Mr. Mercer's personal life or business affairs with Matthew or anyone else. This one she hasn't broken, mostly because Matthew brings his father up on his own in ways she doesn't prompt and doesn't redirect. Daddy doesn't come to my room anymore, he mentions on day 4, during what was supposed to be a 30-minute homework session that has quietly become a 2-hour negotiation about the relative merits of subtraction. He says it the way he says most things, just drops it into the conversation like a stone into still water, watching to see if it sinks or if she catches it. Amanda keeps her pencil moving on the worksheet. Did he used to? When I was little. Matthew considers this with great seriousness. I'm bigger now. He is 6. The certainty with which he has aged himself out of his father's comfort is not something a 6-year-old arrived at on his own. Someone, somewhere let him believe it, and he built a whole explanation around it to make the gap feel like something he chose. She doesn't push. She makes a note, in the part of her brain where she keeps the things she's still working out. It's on a Friday that she finds the photo. She's not snooping. This matters to her in a way it might not to someone else, because she has a very precise sense of where her business ends and other people's begins. She's putting away a stack of Matthew's drawings that have migrated to the hall table, opening the drawer beneath to find a pen, and the photo is right there. Not hidden, just placed face down, the way you set something down when you're not ready to throw it away, but can't deal with what's on the other side of it. She doesn't mean to turn it over, she turns it over. A woman, 30-something when the picture was taken, maybe a few years ago now. Dark hair, long, the kind that falls a specific way that tells you she grew it on purpose. She's laughing, full, unself-conscious, caught mid-sentence. And even in a photograph, that laughter has a quality to it that makes you wish you'd been in the room for whatever the joke was. The kind of laugh that takes up space, that doesn't apologize for itself. She is standing next to Alex, who is smiling. Not the careful, controlled arrangement of facial muscles Amanda has catalogued at a distance. The brief, functional expression he deploys at school drop-off when another parent catches his eye. An actual smile, the kind that changes the whole structure of a face, that shows you the person living underneath the architecture. His shoulders are different in the photo. Lower. His hand is at the small of the woman's back, and the gesture is so easy, so without calculation, that it lands like a small shock. He looks younger, or maybe just more present. The distinction, she suspects, is the same thing. Amanda turns the photo back over, replaces it exactly where she found it, closes the drawer. She stands in the hallway for a moment, pen in hand, the wood floor cold through her socks, the apartment doing its usual impression of a place where nothing has ever happened. The woman who laughed like that, who made Alex Mercer look like that, chose to leave, or was left, or both, in the complicated way those things usually go. She doesn't know the story, and she's not going to ask. What she knows is what the apartment feels like now. 7 days in, the specific weight of its silence, the way Matthew sometimes goes still and looks toward the front door when he hears the elevator reach their floor, and then goes back to whatever he was doing when it isn't who he was hoping for. She goes back to the kitchen to start dinner. Some things you file away and don't touch again. Some things file themselves. Alex notices Amanda on a Wednesday, which is, he'll admit only to himself, only in the specific pre-dawn hour when honesty becomes temporarily unavoidable, later than he should have. He's been aware of her the way he's aware of most things that function correctly, peripherally, without investment. The protocols are being followed. Matthew is eating. No calls to Patricia flagging issues. The system is working, and when a system works, Alex Mercer's policy is to leave it entirely alone. Except he works late on Tuesdays usually, and he comes out of his study at 11 for water, one of the concessions he's made to his body in their ongoing negotiation, and the kitchen light is on. Amanda is at the counter with a cup of tea, not eating, just standing there, reading something on her phone. She doesn't hear him right away. For approximately 4 seconds, Alex watches someone exist in his kitchen without performing for the space. Her weight is shifted to one foot, the other hooked behind her ankle, the posture of someone who has genuinely forgotten they're anywhere in particular. Her hair is down. He's only seen it pulled back, which is how she wears it with Matthew, and it falls to her shoulders with the particular quality of hair that has its own opinions about direction. She's reading something that makes her brow furrow, not in worry, but in concentration, the specific frown of someone deciding whether or not they agree with what they're seeing. She looks up. Mr. Mercer. No startling, no overcorrection, no reflexive apology for occupying space. Just acknowledgement. Do you want me to make you something? I was just... No. He crosses to the refrigerator. Go back to what you were doing. She does. Which is, he notes, not what most people do when he enters a room. He takes his water back to his study and doesn't think about it again until Thursday morning, when he hears her laugh from Matthew's room. A real laugh, not the professional warmth version he's calibrated to recognize in people whose job involves managing other people's children, but the unguarded kind, the kind that travels further than intended. Matthew is explaining something at high volume about Spinosaurus, and the laugh comes from being genuinely amused rather than from managing. It's a small but specific difference. The difference between someone doing their job well and someone who has, for 30 seconds, forgotten it's a job at all. Alex is at his desk, halfway through a quarterly review, and his fingers stop on the keyboard for one beat before they resume. He thinks she means it. He doesn't know exactly what he means by that. He files it and moves on. Men like Alex don't tend to notice things, not the small things, not the ones that don't have immediate strategic relevance. They're not cold exactly. They've just spent so long optimizing their attention that anything which can't be acted upon gets routed somewhere it won't interfere. The trouble is that sometimes something slips past the routing, and once it does, once it's made it through, there's no sending it back. Friday is when he stops being able to not notice. He comes home earlier than usual, a meeting cancels, a small miracle of modern scheduling, and Matthew is in the living room with Amanda, both of them on the floor, surrounded by dinosaur figures, and what appears to be a full geography of the apartment constructed from couch cushions and stacked books. Matthew is narrating. Amanda is listening with the full weight of her attention, which is, Alex observes from the hallway, a kind of attention most adults have spent years training themselves out of giving. Matthew looks up. "Daddy!" And his face does the thing Alex both loves and finds difficult to look at directly, the unfiltered joy of a child who hasn't yet learned to modulate his own affection for self-protection, who still leads with his whole face when someone he loves walks through the door. Alex has never found a way to be adequate to that expression. He just tries not to be inadequate to it. "Hey," he sets down his bag. "What are we building?" "Cretaceous period," Matthew says, with the authority of someone who has done extensive research. The Cretaceous period was mostly shallow seas. This is the land part. Fair. He looks at Amanda, who is watching the exchange with an expression he can't quite place, careful, not unreadable, just considered, like she's already decided how much of what she's thinking to let show. "Early evening, Mr. Mercer," she says. "Meeting cancelled." He doesn't know why he offers that. He doesn't explain himself, as a rule. "I'll leave you to it." "Daddy, stay," Matthew says. "You can be the meteor." A beat. Alex looks at the cushion geography. He looks at Matthew. He looks briefly at Amanda, who has an expression that is nonetheless the closest thing to genuine amusement he's seen directed at him in a long time. "The meteor," he says. "The meteor comes at the end," Matthew says seriously. "It's the most important part." Alex takes off his jacket, sits down on the floor, which his lower back registers with the quiet indignity of a man who's been sitting in an ergonomic chair for 12-hour stretches and has forgotten what actual ground feels like. Matthew arranges him immediately, with the unself-conscious authority of a director who knows exactly what he wants from his cast. Amanda catches his eye from across the cushioned landscape. She doesn't smile. She just holds his gaze for a moment in a way that says, "You're doing fine." He looks away first. The problem, and he recognizes it as a problem the way you recognize a structural issue in a building, calmly and early, before it becomes load-bearing, is that Amanda Cole doesn't want anything from him. Everyone wants something from Alex Mercer. Money, access, influence, approval, time, the particular professional validation of being treated as significant by someone who is considered significant. It's not cynicism to observe this, it's pattern recognition. He's been watching the pattern for 15 years, and it has held without exception. Except she doesn't. She wants Matthew to eat dinner and sleep through the night and feel like the ground under him is stable. She wants the protocols adjusted because Rule 6 on screen time is, in her words, delivered in a flat Monday morning tone while he was pouring coffee, designed for a different child than yours, and following it is why he's overtired by Thursday. He'd looked at her. She'd looked back. No flinching, no softening it with a smile. Just the opinion sitting there, taking up its reasonable amount of space. "What would you change it to?" he'd asked. 20 minutes less on school nights, 30 more on weekends. He needs the wind down, not the restriction. A pause. "That's my read. You know him better than I do." He hadn't actually responded. She'd nodded once and gone back to making Matthew's lunch. He'd updated the protocols that afternoon. The problem isn't that she's good at her job. He's had good nannies before, competent and professional, women who followed the protocols and kept Matthew safe and cried when Patricia placed them elsewhere. The problem is the way she asks questions without asking them. The way she's learned the house not by requesting information from him, but by watching how the house moves, what it sounds like at different hours, where the silences settle and which ones are comfortable and which aren't. He knows this because he does the same thing. He recognizes the method. That's all he means by it. It's Wednesday again, nearly 11, and the building is quiet, and his quarterly projections are finished, and for the first time in perhaps 3 months, he has no immediate reason to stay at his desk. He gets up, takes his water glass to the kitchen. The light is on. He stops in the doorway. Amanda is at the counter with a notebook this time rather than her phone, writing something in fast, slanted handwriting, the pen moving the way pens move when someone is trying to keep up with their own thinking. She doesn't look up immediately. When she does, there's a half-second where she's still inside whatever she was working through, and then she's here, present, fully returned to the room. That's a thing she does, he thinks, returns to the room completely. "Can't sleep?" she asks. "Working late?" He crosses to the sink, refills the glass. "You?" Matthew had a rough night. He's down now. She glances at the notebook, closes it. He's been asking about his mother. The information lands quietly, the way information lands when you were already expecting it and hoping not to be. What does he ask? Whether she's okay, whether she misses him. Amanda's voice is steady and unadorned, delivering it the way someone delivers something they've already decided not to dress up. He's not angry, he's just sorting it out. Kids do that. Alex doesn't say anything for a moment. He turns the glass in his hand. The refrigerator hums somewhere behind him. 40 floors down, a siren moves through the city and fades. What do you tell him? That I don't know her, so I can't answer for her. That missing someone and being able to be with them are different things, and one doesn't prove the other. She pauses. He seemed to find that useful. He looks at her. Did he come up with that, or did you? both. Something shifts at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile, more the shadow of one. The thing that happens in the moment before a person decides whether to commit to it. He's smarter than the protocols give him credit for. The corner of Alex's mouth moves slightly in a direction it doesn't usually go. He doesn't stay long. He says goodnight, returns to his study, sits at his desk. He doesn't open the quarterly projections. He sits there instead with his water glass and the specific quality of silence that follows a conversation you weren't expecting to have. The kind that doesn't ask you for anything but leaves something behind anyway, like a window that's been opened and then closed, the air in the room permanently different from what it was before. The sentence comes on a Thursday, 4:15 in the afternoon, which is, Amanda has learned, the specific hour when Matthew's filters go offline. Not from tiredness. On nap days and non-nap days alike, the 4:15 unraveling is simply part of his design, something built into him below the level of intention. He says things between 4 and 5 that he won't say at any other hour. Truths he's been carrying around all day that get too heavy by afternoon and have to be set down somewhere. They're at the kitchen table, homework. More specifically, the ongoing territorial dispute between Matthew and the concept of writing the letter B in the direction his teacher prefers. Why does it have to go this way? He turns his pencil around, regarding the offending B with the specific contempt of someone who finds the convention personally affronting. Because that's how everyone agreed to do it, Amanda says, like driving on one side of the road. It only works if everybody does the same thing. I didn't agree. You weren't there when they decided. This is apparently a satisfying answer. He draws the B, correctly this time, and with only moderate resentment. Then, without looking up, Amanda. Are you going to leave too, like Mommy? The kitchen goes very quiet. There are questions that children ask that don't come from nowhere. They've been turning them over for days, weeks sometimes, waiting for the right moment, or just the moment when they can't hold it any longer. And when the question finally comes out, it's never dressed up, it's just the thing itself, plain and exact, dropped onto whatever surface happens to be nearest. That's the part that gets you, not the question, the plainness of it. Amanda puts her pencil down. Slowly, without any gesture that would signal to him that the question has weight. It has enormous weight. But Matthew doesn't need to know she felt it land. What made you think about that? I don't know. He's still looking at the B. Ms. Diane left. Mommy left. People leave. Some people leave, Amanda says carefully. That's true. Do you? She thinks about the right answer. Not the easy one, the right one. The one she can actually stand behind in 3 months and 6 months, and however long she's here. I don't leave without saying goodbye, she says. That's the one promise I can make. He thinks about this with the focused deliberation of a child who has learned to evaluate terms before agreeing to them. His pencil is still in his hand. Outside, a delivery truck idles on the street 40 stories below, the sound barely reaching them, the city going on with complete indifference. Okay, he says, and goes back to his B. What Amanda doesn't know, what she couldn't know, because he doesn't make a sound and the hallway behind the kitchen runs deep, is that Alex is standing just past the doorway. He'd come home at 4, another early end, another cancelled meeting. His schedule this week has been unexpectedly porous, which is not a pattern he's examined too closely or honestly. He'd heard their voices from the hall, Amanda's steady, Matthew's high and particular, and had stopped for reasons he didn't name even to himself. The way you stop when you're about to walk into a room, and something in you hesitates at the threshold without being able to say why. He hears his son ask if she's going to leave like his mother. He hears her answer. He stands in the hallway for a moment that has no clear endpoint, present enough to feel the full weight of both things, the question and the answer, the 6 years of architecture underneath them. His son has built a theory about the world, about who stays and who doesn't, and he has built it without being taught it, which is the kind of thing that only happens when a child has been doing the math on their own for a long time. He goes back to his study, sits at his desk, his laptop is open and he doesn't look at it. The specific difficulty of being a person who controls his environment is that when you lose control of a moment, you feel the edges of it in a way other people don't. The moment is nothing, objectively, a question and an answer, a child and a nanny at a kitchen table on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. There's nothing dramatic about it, nothing that would register to an outside observer as significant, but it sits in his chest with a weight he doesn't have a category for. She answered him correctly, he thinks. I don't know if I could have. He opens his laptop, answers 3 emails, closes it, opens it again. The cursor blinks at the top of a document he's supposed to have reviewed by morning, and he reads the same paragraph 4 times and retains none of it. At 6:30 he comes to the kitchen for dinner, and Amanda sets his plate down without ceremony, and Matthew tells him about the letter B with significant editorial detail, and Alex eats and says the right things, and the whole time he's watching Amanda move around the kitchen, efficient, unhurried, completely at home in a space he's lived in for 4 years, and never once felt at home in himself. She's been here 8 days, he thinks. He doesn't know what to do with that calculation. That night at 10:30, he knocks on her door. He's been thinking about doing it for 3 hours and has not found a single convincing reason to, which should have been sufficient to stop him. He does it anyway. Amanda opens the door in what is clearly the tail end of getting ready for sleep, hair back, oversized sweater, the look of someone whose face has gone slightly unguarded in the way faces do when they've stopped performing for the day, and the visitor at the door wasn't in their calculations. Mr. Mercer, I need to ask you something. He says it before he can revise it into something more contained. I heard Matthew today in the kitchen. A brief stillness in her expression, and then it settles. I know. You knew. I heard you in the hallway. She leans against the door frame. Neither of them reaches for the overhead light. The conversation happens in the dim glow from her bedside lamp, which feels appropriate in a way neither of them would name. I wasn't sure how long you'd stay. He takes a moment with this. What I want to ask, what I'm asking, is about what you said to him, about leaving. He holds her gaze directly, the way he holds eye contact in a negotiation. Except this isn't a negotiation. Did you mean it? She holds his gaze back, unhurried. I don't make promises I can't keep, she says, so yes, I meant it. The hallway holds its quiet around them. Somewhere in the apartment the refrigerator cycles on, that low, sustained hum that you only notice when everything else has stopped. Okay, he says. Okay. He turns to go, gets 2 steps. Mr. Mercer, he stops. He needs you to come to his room sometimes. Her voice is the same, steady, unadorned, no softening around the edges. Not to say anything specific, just to be there. He told me you used to. The sentence lands with the particular precision of something true said plainly, without cushioning, without apology. Alex stands in the hallway with his back to her, and the words arranging themselves inside him into something he recognizes and has been avoiding recognizing for longer than 8 days. Good night, Amanda, he says. He goes back to his study. But at 11:15 she hears footsteps in the hallway, hears Matthew's door open softly, the old hinge giving its familiar quarter-turn complaint. Hears nothing for several minutes. No voices, no movement, just the particular silence of someone keeping a child company in the dark. And then the footsteps returning, unhurried, back down the hall. She closes her book, turns off her light. Some things don't need to be named to be real. They have a conversation on a Friday that neither of them planned. The week has been different. Something shifted after the hallway exchange, a degree or two not enough to name, but enough that the apartment feels less like a stage set and more like somewhere people actually live. Alex came to Matthew's room twice more. Matthew reported this to Amanda with the satisfied confidence of someone whose negotiations have been going well. The conversation happens because Amanda burns the pasta. Not catastrophically. The bottom catches while she's on a phone call, and the smell moves through the kitchen fast, and Matthew appears in the doorway to announce that it smells like when Daddy forgets things on the stove, which tells her something useful about Alex Mercer, and also means dinner is 20 minutes behind schedule. Alex comes in at 7:15. He takes in the situation. Problem. The pasta disagreed with me. She drains it. 20 minutes, sorry. Don't apologize for pasta. She glances at him. There's something different tonight. The controlled structure is there. It's always there. But the effort of maintaining it seems lighter, like a man who's been spending a different kind of energy all week and has only just noticed. He stays. Sits on the counter, something his body apparently decided before his judgment checked in. He looks faintly surprised by himself. Amanda says nothing about it. She turns back to the stove. She's whisking the sauce when she feels him move. Not dramatic, no announced intention, just the shift of weight that means someone has closed distance. He stops beside her at the counter, close enough that she can see his reflection in the dark kitchen window, close enough that the warmth of him is a presence before it's a thought. He's looking at the pan, ostensibly, the way people look at something when what they're actually doing is standing near someone else. "What is that?" he asks. "Brown butter, for the pasta." She keeps her eyes on the pan. The wooden spoon in her hand feels suddenly like something to hold on to. It fixes the burnt taste, mostly. Cooking is optimistic by nature. He almost smiles. She feels it more than sees it. The shift in the air beside her, the exhale that's a half-degree warmer than the rest of the room. Neither of them moves. The kitchen does what kitchens do at this hour, holds the heat of the day, smells like butter and something almost ruined and salvaged anyway. The city 40 floors below doing its indifferent hum. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't ask to be filled. "Patricia called today," he says after a while. "About?" "Matthew's been sleeping through the night." A pause. "She said you've been sitting with him. Is that a problem?" "No." The word is immediate, certain. He hasn't done that in about a year. He says it plainly, the way you say things you've rehearsed to yourself enough times that the saying has been stripped of its charge. Since his mother left, Amanda keeps the spoon moving. She doesn't look at him. She's learned that some things he'll say more easily without an audience, when the words can just move through the room without landing on a face. "Her name was Nicole," he says. "She's in London now. She sends him books." A pause that has weight but no drama. She's not completely gone, just not here. "He knows she thinks about him," Amanda says quietly. "That matters." "Yes." He says it like he means something slightly different by it. Like yes is the answer to a question she didn't ask. She plates the pasta then, and the movement breaks the geometry of them. She steps away to the table, sets his plate down, and when she comes back to the counter for hers, the space he'd occupied is just space again, cooler than it should be. She looks down at her plate. She thinks, there he is. That's the person in the photograph. She thinks, be careful, Amanda. She's in her room at 10:15 when the phone buzzes. Patricia. A text. Heads up. Nicole Mercer called the agency today. Asked if there had been any change in Matthew's care. I told her about the placement. She may reach out to Alex. Amanda reads it twice, sets the phone face down on the nightstand. The woman who laughed with her whole face, who is in London, who sends books, who called today, which means she's paying attention, which means the story has more chapters than Amanda accounted for. Down the hallway, footsteps. Alex going to Matthew's room. The soft complaint of the old door hinge. Then silence. She closes her eyes. Be careful. She thinks again. She already knows she's not listening to herself. It happens on a Saturday. It shouldn't have. But that's the thing about the kind of wanting that builds quietly, without announcing itself. By the time you notice it, you're already inside it. Matthew is at a birthday party, 6 hours. The first real stretch of unstructured time Amanda has had in 5 weeks. Nothing organized around his schedule or his meals, or his running commentary on the prehistoric food chain. She'd planned to walk somewhere, find a bookstore, remember what it felt like to move through a city with no one narrating the journey. Instead, she's in the kitchen at 4 in the afternoon when Alex wanders in. He's looking for something, a document, a charger. The look of a man who moves into rooms when he's thinking and doesn't always notice he's done it. He stops when he sees her. Matthew's at the party, she says. I know. He leans in the doorway. No jacket, sleeves rolled to the elbow. The weekend version of him, the one she gets glimpses of on quiet Saturday mornings when the building is still, and his guard drops approximately 7%. He looks like someone who, given the right circumstances, could remember how to just exist in a room. I just wanted coffee. I'll make it. You don't have to. I know. She gets up anyway. That's how it starts. Coffee at 4 on a Saturday. No child in the apartment. No protocol requiring either of them to be anywhere specific. They sit at the kitchen table, across from each other, the width of it doing the work that neither of them is going to do out loud. And he talks. Not about the company, not about logistics, about being 26 and believing that building something was the same as building something that would last. About a cousin who lent him money and has never once let him forget it, in the specific, relentless way of people who love you and know it gives them leverage. About Matthew at 2 years old, before everything shifted, a version of his son he returns to sometimes privately when the current Matthew looks at the front door. Amanda listens, then she talks. About her grandmother's kitchen in Atlanta, which is where she learned that a house with food in it is a house where people are loved. About why she does this, nannying specifically, when she could have done other things, and the answer is both simple and hard to say out loud. I like being in a home that needs something, about a family in Tribeca, a mother who cried on her last day, and a father who shook her hand, and how she'd thought. This is enough, this is the job. I don't know why it doesn't feel like enough. Alex looks at her for a long moment after she says that. Why doesn't it? He asks. I don't know yet, she says, still working it out. Outside, the city is doing its Saturday thing, unhurried, ambient, the particular quality of an afternoon that has nowhere it needs to be. The light through the windows has gone from white to gold, without either of them marking the transition. The bottle of wine was already on the counter, bought for a dinner earlier in the week, 1 glass left in it. She'd poured it into her coffee mug, because why not? And Alex had raised an eyebrow and she'd offered and he'd said why not? Which is, she thinks, the most human thing she's heard from him. The wine runs out somewhere around 6. She's not drunk. 1 glass over 2 hours barely registers. But something else has run out alongside it. The careful management, the professional calculation of distance, the thing she's been maintaining deliberately for 5 weeks. The internal rule that says, you work for this man, Amanda. His son needs stability. You are not the kind of person who mistakes proximity for meaning. She knew all of that this morning. She still knows it. He's looking at her in a way that isn't the spreadsheet look, not the scanning, the assessing, the routing. Just looking at her. Present and undisguised in a way that doesn't belong to the daylight hours. The way people look when they've stopped rehearsing what they're about to say and are just there in the room with you. The tension before something happens has a specific physical quality that has nothing to do with romance. It's closer to standing at the edge of something high, the moment before your body decides. The air gets thinner, small sounds get louder. She's aware of the exact distance between them across the table, aware of it the way you're aware of a sound you can't locate, pressing on something just below the surface. Amanda. His voice is different, not softer. He doesn't do soft. She's accepted this about him. But quieter. The way you say a name when you've been saying a version of it for weeks, and this is the first time you've used the real one. She has 3 rational sentences queued up. She doesn't say any of them. He kisses her first, or she moves first. The accounting is genuinely unclear, and neither of them is going to reconstruct it with any precision. What matters is that it happens, and it's nothing like the tentative first contact of 2 people feeling their way toward each other. It's the kiss of 2 people who have been paying close attention for weeks, who have been cataloguing each other without permission, who are finally just doing the thing that was already true. It has the specific quality of something that's been accurate for a while before anyone said it out loud. They stop at some point, not because either of them wants to, but because the apartment is quiet and the light has changed and the world outside is still going, and they're both irreducibly the kind of people who don't fully stop thinking even when something warrants it. She looks at him. He looks at her. His hand is still at her jaw, not pulling her toward him anymore, just resting there, present, like he's not ready to be the one who breaks the contact first. It's the most unguarded thing she's seen from him, that hand. Everything else about him has a purpose. That hand is just staying. Matthew's home at 9, she says finally. I know. A beat. This isn't... He stops, starts again. I don't know what to do with this. I know. I'm not saying it was a mistake. I know that too. He looks at her for another moment, long and careful, the way he looks at things he hasn't finished understanding yet. Then he says goodnight, gets up and goes back to his study. She sits at the kitchen table for a while. The kitchen holds the evening around her, the smell of coffee gone cold, the gold light fading to grey at the windows, the city below shifting into its nighttime register. She is not spiraling. That's not how she's built. But she's honest with herself, which is sometimes the harder option. She went into this knowing the rules, knowing what it would cost Matthew if this broke wrong, knowing her own particular history, with wanting too much from people who don't have it to give. She knew. She picks up her mug, rinses it in the sink. She picks Matthew up at 8:50, and he's had a wonderful time, and needs to tell her everything about it immediately and at length, and she listens, and he falls asleep in the car with his head against her shoulder, and she carries him to bed. And when she comes out of his room, Alex is in the hallway. He doesn't say anything, she doesn't say anything. He goes to his study. She goes to her room. In the morning, before Matthew is up, before she's had coffee, before she's had a chance to reconstruct herself into the reasonable person she intends to be, she finds an envelope on the kitchen table, her name on the front, his handwriting. She doesn't open it immediately. She makes coffee, she sits down, she opens it. Formal notice of termination of contract, 2 weeks paid in full. Patricia will handle the transition. She reads it twice, sets it down, drinks her coffee. Of course, she thinks. And the thought carries no bitterness, only the specific, worn clarity of someone who built the table themselves and always knew the weight it couldn't hold. He got scared. And this is what scared looks like on a man who controls everything. He gets to be scared. That doesn't mean I have to wait for it to pass. She packs in a day. She doesn't make it dramatic. She doesn't make anything dramatic, which is one of her better qualities and occasionally her most frustrating one. A suitcase and 2 boxes. Her books, her spare running shoes, the scarf Matthew declared was the good purple one when they went to the park 3 weeks ago. She leaves the protocols folder on the kitchen counter. She leaves the coffee exactly right for 7, because Matthew will still need coffee made in the morning even if she isn't there to make it. That's the part that gets her briefly. Not the leaving, but the coffee. The fact that she set it up anyway. There's a specific kind of dignity in packing quietly. No slammed drawers, no tears in the hallway. No scene that makes the other person feel like the villain they maybe are. Women do this more than they should. Fold their hurt into neat squares and place it in a box and carry it out themselves. Amanda knows she's doing it. She does it anyway because the alternative is making this about her, and this stopped being about her the moment a 6-year-old asked if she was going to leave like his mother. Alex appears in the doorway at 3. She's folding a sweater. She doesn't stop. Amanda. Mr. Mercer. Something moves through his face, complicated, contained, the specific expression of a man feeling anguish in a building he controls and refusing to let it show in the load-bearing walls. I think you understand why. You don't need to explain it. She sets the sweater in the box. You got scared. You're allowed. It's not about being scared. Okay. She picks up another sweater. Call it whatever you want. There are implications to what happened. He takes a step into the room, stops. Matthew, is why I didn't make a different choice sooner. She looks at him directly for the first time. Not because of you, because of him. Because he needs someone steady, and I wasn't going to let what I feel make me unsteady. A pause. But you solved that, so... Silence. So you do, he says. Low, not quite a question. Don't. She closes the box. You don't get to use that in the same conversation as the termination letter. He looks at her. She picks up the box and walks past him into the hallway. He doesn't move, doesn't stop her. There's nothing in him that knows how to do that. And they both understand this. And it is both his damage and his honesty, and she doesn't have the luxury of finding it endearing right now. Matthew is in his room with his dinosaurs when she knocks. He looks up. He sees the box. His face does the thing. Filters completely offline. 2 in the afternoon, doesn't matter. You're leaving. Yeah, buddy. She crouches to his level. I am. You said you wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. I know, that's why I'm here right now. His jaw sets. His father's jaw. The refusal to cry already a reflex at 6. She opens her arms. He comes into them and holds on with everything he has. And she holds on longer than necessary until the holding runs out. She picks up her box. She goes. She's in the elevator with her suitcase when she hears it, Matthew's voice small and clear, carrying from somewhere inside the apartment. "Daddy, why did you make her go?" A silence. "It was complicated, Matt." "That means you don't know." The doors close. She finds a sublet in Brooklyn, small, noisy from the street. Nothing like the Upper East Side and exactly what she needs. She sits with it for a week. Doesn't cry, not for herself. For other people she cries easily, for sad films, for children who look at doors, for one specific man who didn't know what to do with something real. For herself, she just sits with it, turns it over, sets it down. She calls her grandmother in Atlanta on Sunday night. "You okay?" her grandmother asks, without preamble. "Getting there. Boy trouble?" "Sort of." She looks out at the Brooklyn street below. Man trouble, different problem. Her grandmother makes the sound she makes. "Those are always the harder ones." "Yeah." Amanda pulls her knees up. Outside, someone is playing music 2 floors down, something slow and a little sad. And the city does what the city does, holds everything at once without choosing sides. Yeah, they are. The apartment is quiet in a different way now. Alex knows this isn't an objective observation. A room doesn't change because a person leaves it. The square footage is identical. The floor plan hasn't shifted. And yet, the kitchen at 7:15 has a quality of stillness it didn't have before. The particular kind of quiet you only notice when you've stopped noticing a sound. When the absence is the thing that's loudest. He makes the coffee himself. Too strong the first morning, too weak the second, then something that Matthew regards with the measured expression of a child who has been presented with evidence and drawn a conclusion. Alex doesn't explain. He adjusts. By Thursday he has it approximately right, which feels like a hollow kind of competence. A man relearning a small thing in a house that got quieter in a large way. Matthew eats his breakfast without comment. Alex watches this carefully, more carefully than he's watched anything in a long time, retreating slightly. The way he retreats when something has happened that no one is explaining. He goes to his room more, plays with his dinosaurs more quietly, the running commentary reduced to something barely audible, a private narration for an audience of one. He doesn't ask for Amanda at meals, doesn't mention her name before bed, which is, Alex understands, considerably worse than if he did. He sees it in the small things day by day, the way Matthew sets 2 places at the table on Tuesday before catching himself and removing one, the way he goes to the hallway at 4:15, the hour when the filters come down, the hour when he used to find her, and just stands there for a moment before going back to his room. The way he stopped leaving his drawings on the hall table, because there's no one to find them. He's not sad in a way that announces itself. He's sad in the way of someone who's already learned that announcing it doesn't change anything. Patricia sends 3 candidates. Alex reviews their files on a Tuesday morning that looks like every other Tuesday morning, except that the apartment feels like a room where someone has recently turned off music. Not silence exactly, but the absence of something that had been playing long enough to go unnoticed. He denies all 3, doesn't give Patricia a reason. She calls, "Alex." "Not those 3. "Then tell me what you're looking for." He doesn't have an answer for this. He ends the call. He closes 2 deals that week, a Singapore infrastructure contract he's been pursuing for 8 months, a real estate acquisition that will rewrite the company's East Coast footprint. His assistant sends wine to the office. His COO says nice work. That's the whole ceremony. He sits at his desk afterward and waits for the satisfaction to arrive, and it doesn't. Quite the way it usually does. It lands a few degrees short of where it used to land, and he notes this and doesn't examine it too closely. He sits at his desk on Thursday at 11 and does not open the quarterly projections. He thinks, what did I do? He's been not thinking it for 3 weeks, with the particular proficiency of a man who has made an art form of not thinking things. It serves him well, usually. It serves him right up until a grocery delivery arrives with the standing order he approved without reading. And on the counter, among everything else, sits a box of the specific tea she drinks. He picks it up, puts it down, picks it up again. He stands in the kitchen for a while with the box in his hand, the city doing its indifferent thing 40 floors below, And he allows himself, for the first time in 3 weeks, to just know what he did. Not analyze it, not route it through more defensible language, just know it, the plain fact of it the way it sits. Then he calls Matthew in. "Sit down," he says. Matthew sits across from him at the kitchen table with his father's capacity for stillness when something important is being negotiated. "I made a mistake," Alex says. Matthew waits. "Amanda leaving, that was my decision, not hers." He says it carefully because the instinct is to soften it, and he's decided softness here would be a different kind of mistake. She didn't want to go. Matthew's jaw does the thing, sets slightly, the refusal already forming. "Why did you make her?" "Because I got scared." He uses her word, scared. It costs him something to say it without routing it through something more controlled, more defensible. He says it anyway because Matthew is 6 years old and has already been given enough information that isn't accurate. "And when I get scared, I do the wrong thing." A silence. "Are you going to fix it?" Matthew asks. Alex looks at his son. "I'm thinking about how," he says. "It's not that hard," Matthew says, with the authority of someone who has never had to dismantle 15 years of emotional infrastructure. "You just go and say sorry." He thinks about how for 7 days. Not because sorry is complicated. Sorry is 4 letters, he knows how to say them. But he understands the difference between going to Amanda with an apology that's actually a renegotiation, "I'll be better, come back, we'll manage it differently," and going with something genuine, which would require saying things out loud he hasn't said to anyone, which would require not knowing, for the duration of the conversation, whether it's going to work. He's built his entire life around not having conversations whose outcomes he can't predict. The discomfort of standing in uncertainty, of saying something real into a silence that might not give back what he needs, that's not something he's practiced. He's practiced everything else. He calls Aldrich, his oldest friend, the only person who's known him since before the company, before Nicole, before the version of himself he's been maintaining for so long. It sometimes feels like the original. Aldrich listens. Then, "You know what your problem is." "I'm certain you're about to tell me." "You treat your feelings like a negotiation. You only say something when you've already decided what the response should be." That's exactly what that is." Aldrich's voice carries no judgment, which is somehow worse than if it did. "Go see her, Alex. Don't bring a strategy. That's the whole point." He finds her on a Saturday. Patricia gives him the Brooklyn address reluctantly, after he asks twice and explains once. The building is nothing like the Upper East Side. 5 floors, no doorman, a buzzer that sticks on the first press. He stands outside it at 3 in the afternoon, in the specific uncertainty of a man who has never stood in front of a building without knowing what was going to happen inside it. The street is loud around him, unhelpfully ordinary. Someone arguing on a phone, a dog pulling at its leash, the smell of someone's takeout drifting past. The world, completely indifferent to the fact that he is about to do something he doesn't know how to do. He buzzes. A pause. "Who is it?" Her voice through the intercom, carrying a wariness she's entirely entitled to, that lands in his chest with the weight of something earned. "Alex." A longer pause. "I'll come down," she says. She opens the front door and stands in the frame, arms crossed, not defensively, just contained. The grey sweater he's seen before, hair down. She looks at him the way she looked at him in the first week, the reading before speaking look, except now she knows him well enough that it's a different kind of reading, more thorough, less forgiving of what it finds. "You have a strategy," she says. "I know." He holds her gaze. "I'm trying not to use it." She doesn't move from the doorway. "I hurt you," he says. "I know how I hurt you. I panicked and I handled it the worst possible way, and I'm not—" He stops, doesn't smooth the edges. "I'm not here to make it right. I don't know if I can. I'm here to tell you that I know what I did." A silence that has texture to it, not empty, not waiting to be filled, just present. "Matthew?" she asks. He comes to his room now without being asked. A pause. "He misses you. He told me to come and say sorry." He seemed to find it straightforward. The corner of her mouth moves briefly, then settles. "It's not straightforward," she says. I know. I came here because I wasn't going to spend another placement being the person who holds everything for someone who doesn't hold anything back. She says it directly, steadily, the same steadiness she had the morning she packed. That's not about you specifically. That's who I'm done being. I know. He says it again. Because he means it. Because he's saying I know instead of but or however, or any of the rerouting words he'd prepared and decided not to use. She looks at him. He stays exactly where he is on her front step. Not performing patience, actually uncertain, actually without a move prepared, standing in the outcome he can't predict and making himself stay there anyway. It's the most uncomfortable he's been in years. He thinks this might be the point. She looks at him for a long moment. Then she steps back from the doorway, not throwing it open, not declaring anything, just stepping back, making room, leaving the choice where it belongs. "Come in," she says. "I'll put the kettle on." She does not make it easy, and she shouldn't have to. There's a particular expectation placed on women who've been hurt, that they should recover quickly, extend grace efficiently, make the return as painless as possible for the person who caused the leaving, as if the difficulty itself is an imposition. Amanda Cole is many things. Soft on command isn't one of them. He doesn't expect her to. He comes back on Tuesday. She hadn't asked him to. But he'd said, "Can I?" and she'd said yes. And he's learning the difference between the things she says and the things she means, which are usually the same, but sometimes run about 30 seconds ahead of each other. They talk in her small Brooklyn kitchen about Matthew, who is sleeping better now, who told his class that his dad made a mistake. Alex had received the teacher's report. He'd found it. He admitted this, hands around a mug of tea he hadn't asked for and didn't refuse, briefly humiliating, and then, after a night with it, mostly correct. "He's your son," Amanda says. "That's fair," he says. The tea sits between them on the table like a small treaty. He drinks it without commenting. She notices. He notices. She notices. The loop of it, the two of them already calibrated to each other's attention after barely 2 months, settles in the kitchen with a quiet warmth neither of them touches yet. On Thursday, he asks if he can take her to dinner. She says she'll think about it. She calls Friday and says yes. The restaurant is small, Carroll Gardens Italian, candles low enough that the light does the work of softening everything slightly. He'd researched it for 30 minutes, which he admits when she asks, and she says it's very you in a tone that is not a complaint. They're halfway through dinner when it happens. It isn't planned. He'd told himself on the drive over. He'd driven. She'd taken the train. They'd arrived separately, and he'd noticed the specific absurdity of that he wasn't going to say anything, that tonight was just dinner, that he was going to be patient and measured and give her the time she deserved. He lasts until the pasta. It starts as a sentence about something else entirely. He's telling her about the Singapore deal, and she's listening in that particular way she has, fully present, and he's watching her across the table in the candlelight, and something in him just runs out of road. The careful management, the measured pace. He stops mid-sentence, and she notices immediately. "What?" she says. He stops, sets his fork down, which is the kind of thing he does when he's decided to stop pretending he's doing something other than what he's doing. "I need to say something." "Okay. I had a version of this." He looks at the table briefly, then back at her. "In my head. On the way here. It was better than this is going to be." The corner of her mouth moves. I don't do this." He gestures vaguely at the air between them, which is not a clarifying gesture. "I don't sit at a dinner table and tell people things. I write things down. I think them through. I know what I'm going to say before I say it, and I know how it's going to land, and He stops, exhales, starts again from somewhere more honest. "I don't know how this is going to land. That's the whole thing. I don't know, and I'm saying it anyway because I've spent 3 weeks in an apartment that was very loud in its quiet, and I kept thinking that I did the one thing I actually didn't have to do." Amanda is very still across the table. "I'm not asking you to come back," he says. "To the apartment, to the job. I know that's not what I'm asking. He looks at her directly. I'm asking if you'll let me try to be someone worth the risk. That's it. That's the whole thing I had, and I know it doesn't. He shakes his head slightly. The rehearsed version of this was cleaner. The rehearsed version knew where it was going. This one is just him at a table in Carroll Gardens, having run entirely out of architecture. I know it doesn't fix anything. The restaurant moves around them. A waiter crosses somewhere behind her. A couple laughs at the table to the left, the city doing its ordinary Friday thing completely unbothered. Amanda looks at him for a long moment. He doesn't fill the silence. He's learned, somewhere between the kitchen and the protocols and the photograph in the drawer, that her silences are not empty. They're where she does her thinking, and interrupting them is a way of telling her that his discomfort matters more than her process. So he waits. His hand is on the table, not reaching, just there, present, available, if she decides. She looks at his hand. She looks at his face. I heard you, she says finally. Not yes, not no. Not the answer he'd prepared for in either direction. She picks up her fork. Tell me about Singapore, she says. And he does, because she asked, because she's still at the table, because she's still there, which is not a yes, but is also not nothing. And Alex Mercer, who has built an entire life on knowing outcomes in advance, finds that he can sit with not knowing, that it's uncomfortable and real and the most present he's felt in years, and that across the table from him a woman is eating pasta and listening and has not yet decided, and somehow, that's enough for right now. The message comes on a Tuesday. No text before it, no explanation after. Just a photo sent at 8:47 p.m., 19 minutes after Matthew's bedtime. A drawing. Crayon on printer paper. The lines, the specific, confident and wrong lines of a 6-year-old who knows exactly what he's drawing and doesn't need the proportions to be right. 3 figures. One small in dinosaur pajamas, one tall with a very serious jaw, and one in the middle. Brown hair, Amanda can tell because he used the brown crayon down to the nub, with her hand in the small figure's hand. Underneath, in careful, slightly too large letters, we are family. No second eye. He'd run out of space or decided it wasn't load-bearing. Either way, the spelling doesn't touch what the word does. She looks at it for a long time. The street noise rises from below, indifferent and continuous. She looks at the brown crayon worn to nothing. There are grand gestures, and then there are the ones that cost nothing and everything. A child at a kitchen table who drew what he saw, what he wanted, what he'd already decided was true, and his father, who controls everything, looked at that drawing and instead of filing it away, sent it. That's the thing, not the drawing, the sending. She picks up her phone, types, "Tell Matthew the spelling is perfect. 3 dots. Then, he'll want to know if you're coming for dinner Wednesday." She looks at the drawing one more time. The 3 figures, the missing letter. "Yes," she types. "I'll be there." She comes back on a Wednesday, not with the suitcase, not immediately, not permanently, not with any ceremony. Matthew opens the door before she knocks because he heard the elevator, and his face is the face of every 6-year-old who has gotten something he wanted badly enough to stop asking for. He hugs her with everything he has. She holds on. Alex is in the kitchen making pasta. Badly, he'll admit. He's been making it badly for 3 weeks, but he's been making it. And he hears Matthew's voice from the doorway. "You came back." And Amanda's voice, "I said I would." He stays in the kitchen. Some things you let happen in the hallway between the people they belong to. She doesn't move back in immediately. They do it slowly, his word, and she notices he uses it, slowly, as though he's been practicing saying it, and she decides that's enough. She comes for dinners, she comes for mornings. Matthew assigns her the chair that was always hers, the one facing the window, and she accepts the assignment without ceremony. Alex makes the coffee wrong twice more, and then gets it right. She doesn't mention the wrong twice. He doesn't mention that he's been trying. Some things don't need to be named. What does need to be named, on a Sunday morning when Matthew is at a play date and the apartment is quiet in the good way, is this. "I'm not going to stop being scared, mate," he says. "I want to be clear about that. The thing I do when it gets too close, I'm going to keep having to choose not to do it." "I know," she says. That's why I came back. Not because it's fixed, because you're trying. A beat. I'm still going to make the coffee wrong sometimes. The coffee was wrong for 3 weeks. I was working on it. I know you were. The corner of her mouth does the thing. Not quite a smile, the shadow of one, the kind she doesn't decide to give. He goes back to his newspaper. She goes back to her book. Matthew appears at 10:15 in his dinosaur pajamas, outgrown, the ankles showing, and neither of them has mentioned it because he loves them, and some things can wait, and announces that T-rex has definitively defeated Spinosaurus in all known geological conditions and requires immediate acknowledgement from both of them. Alex puts the newspaper down. Amanda puts the book down. The apartment holds the three of them in its morning light, the city below indifferent and endless, the kitchen smelling like coffee made correctly, the small boy in his too short pajamas, waiting with the patience of someone who has learned that the people in this room show up when it counts. They acknowledge it. 6 months later, the house they've rented for the weekend is small and slightly crooked, somewhere in the Hudson Valley, where the trees have gone full October, and the air smells like wood smoke and the particular cold that comes before rain. Matthew is asleep upstairs. He'd lasted until 9:30, which is a record, before the fresh air and the creek, and an afternoon of what he described as serious geological research put him down completely. Amanda is on the back porch with a blanket and her book, though she stopped reading 20 minutes ago. The trees are dark against a sky that can't decide between clouds and stars. Somewhere down the hill, water moves over rocks in the dark. Alex comes out with 2 mugs, sets one beside her without asking, sits. He doesn't say anything. This is something he's learned, or rather, something he's stopped unlearning, the way some people have to deliberately practice the silence they were born, knowing how to hold. He sits beside her, and the night does what nights do in places far enough from the city, and neither of them feels the need to fill it. She picks up the mug. The tea is right, the specific kind, brewed the right amount of time. She looks at him. He's watching the tree line, his profile quiet in the porch light, the silver at his temples more pronounced now in the way of men who've stopped fighting certain things. His hand is on the armrest between them, not reaching, just there. She puts her hand over his. He turns his palm up. That's all. Just that, a hand opening in the dark. The simplest possible answer to the simplest possible question, and the trees and the water, and the October cold bearing witness to nothing more dramatic than 2 people who found their way to the same porch. She goes back to her book. He stays beside her. The stars decide.